Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Mat Chat. We are brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Joined today by my longtime friend and the president of the Cowboy Wrestling Club, Jasper Lockett, who may have officially been passed in notoriety by his son, LaDarion, known as D. You're 71 kilogram U17 World Champion. Welcome to the show, fellas.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. So let's. I need to get this out of the way. Jasper, I've known you since you were 18 years old, I think is right. Yeah. So we go back a way. So if the conversation feels familiar today, folks, I coached against Jasper, not very successfully, when he was at Neosho Junior College. And then a couple years ago at Border Brawl, you brought in LaDarion or D, Aiden, JJ, Sam, and Angelo Ferrari. And you guys took a group picture, and then Ferrari's dad actually called me and said he didn't, with Randy Couture, and Angelo didn't actually know that was Randy Couture. So went back and made sure they shook hands and everything else. So I don't want to bury the lead. D, congratulations, world champ. How's it feel, stud?
Thank you. Good. Just getting back into the swing of things. Got into school today. So
it's August 10th. School starts on August 10th in Stillwater. Is that right?
Yep.
So I do a Zoom call every 2 weeks with the National Wrestling Hall of Fame about the Dual Meet Classic. And I am 99% sure you are in Ethan Kyle's office right now. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I know that. I know that backdrop. So I follow Jasper. I think you and I are Facebook friends. LaDarion or D, I follow you on, I think, Twitter or IG, whatever it is. I saw you guys talked a lot about the importance of writing down goals, of setting goals, of visualization. So D, I'll ask you first, when did you set a goal to be a world champion, and how did you do that? Did you speak it into existence? Did you literally write it down? Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so I think when it first came in, it was probably my U15 year when we tried to make the Pan American team. So that was when we first finally started doing international things with freestyle and wrestling as a whole. And then when we were younger, we did a camp with a team called Cobra. And they were big about writing goals and looking yourself in the mirror, telling yourself things to help you strive. And ever since, my dad's been really big on me writing down my goals, think about them, putting them where I can see them every day.
So that was sort of new to you, that writing the part down. And I get it. Like there's this whole, and Jasper, I'm going to talk to you about this as a dad and as a coach, but there's this whole question, like how much do you wrestle kids early? You can wrestle a gazillion matches in 8, 10, and 12-year-old, and sometimes you see these kids by the time they're 14 or 16, they hate wrestling and they hate their dads. And if you don't wrestle enough, then you're no good, and then the sport really stinks because you're getting your teeth kicked in. But back to you, D, for a second. So when you started writing them down, did you have them on your phone? Were they in your wallet? Were they on a poster in your room? They were on your laptop? Was it like a screensaver? And how much did you see yourself looking at that all the time?
So we always did it where I write it down myself personally on paper. And I had one this year for the season up on my bed. So almost every morning when you wake up, it's right there. It's right on top of my bed frame. And then for my one strictly for Worlds, I put on my door.
And so that was something you're looking at. I remember Emmett Smith talked about, he wrote down the yards to pass. This is before your time probably, but your dad knows the yards he had to pass pass Walter Payton for the all-time leading rushing in the NFL. So Jasper, when you guys went to this club experience and they were talking about that, you've obviously had great coaches. You're a great coach. But it was obviously something you weren't stressing with D as much as they did because it felt like something new to him. What have you taken from that? Because obviously you guys have implemented it into his life, and I'm guessing you're implementing it in all the young athletes you're coaching now?
Yes. Yeah, actually, the idea or the thought process that really made me start to look at it was Mark Sprague. Shout out to Mark Sprague. Mark Sprague, Cobra Kai, came with Chandler Rogers' dad. Actually brought him to Stillwater to talk to me about doing a camp. I said, yeah, let's get him here. And it's called Pinning and Grinning. And he came in, and that was one of his speeches, you know, and I thought, you know, that's the truth. If you don't write your goals down, it's merely just a dream, right? So I thought about that. I said, you know what, guys, it's very important to write your goals down and use it as a checklist, check things off the box. You know, are you really doing what it takes to reach the goal that you wrote? You know, it shouldn't come from me or another coach. It has to come from the person themselves and the kid themselves. So I started really preaching that within the club and within D and the rest of my kids. It's like, write those goals down, and you know if you're really doing what it takes to reach that, or if you're not, you know, and put it somewhere, like he said, was put it somewhere you can see it every day you walk out your door, every day you walk in your door. So therefore, you're going to see that goal, and you know, hey, when you walk in, did I do today what it took for me to get to this goal? You know, so that's kind of was the thought process of it. I love it, and I think it's grown a lot within our club.
Yeah, it's I think in a business sense, like for me as somebody who owns my own business and I'm doing things in wrestling, like I wrote things down like a couple years ago. I'm like, I want to announce the 2020 Olympic trials, and by hook or by crook, we figured it out and got to do it.
That's right.
Like that. And so, and you know, I guess, Steve, one of the things you probably have learned, and I don't want to imply you haven't realized it, but one of the things you've learned is it's okay to shoot for something really big. And even if you don't get it, you're better off. You know, like I always tell when I coach kids, like if you shoot for a 3.0, I guarantee you're not going to get a 4.0. You know, because once you get to a 3.1, you're stopping. You know, so like when you were shooting for a world championship, and you know, I have a relationship with you and your family, I was rooting for you. But either I texted your dad after the semis and, you know, just said, you know, I'm praying for God to have his grace and keep you healthy for one more match and things like that. And win or lose, you're a world finalist at that age. What have you taken from that about just not being afraid to fail? I think all of us at some point have tightened up in our lives and not given our best performance because the moment gets big, we get afraid to fail, you know, and it's something obviously you overcame this time at a really young age.
Yeah, we work a lot on just trying to stay loose, try not to stay like so tense, and just live in the moment a little bit, relax, breathe. We know what our training is doing, what we're doing for these goals. So I think that was helping a lot for sure.
I think it's interesting, like everybody thinks they got great coaches. Everybody thinks they got the right process, right? Like, I mean, everybody does. And I shouldn't say everybody, but all the people that are good think they're doing everything they need to win. And not everybody wins. I mean, that's just it at the end of the day. Like, you know, Jasper, you've been on good teams. You coach a lot of good kids. You and me were talking off the air about that Stillwater high school team last year. And as good as it was, you guys didn't pin everybody in every match at the state tournament. Like, that's just not how it works. And some of the kids that lost, I'm very close to, but they didn't win. They might have done everything right, and somebody else just did a little bit more right. So, like, when something like that happens, like if I lose a 1-point match to you or you lose a 1-point match to me, and you didn't do anything necessarily wrong, okay? Like, you're down 1 on the shot. He's down 1 on the shot clock, Jasper. And, you know, maybe they go 2 shot clocks, one him and then one the other guy, and he loses 2-1 and gets hosed. And we've seen that happen.
Yes.
What do you take from that? If that something like that were to happen, what would be the teaching points there?
For me?
Yeah.
One thing that we do is living in the moment, you know. So, and the moment begins when it ain't going your way sometimes, you know, or when it really gets tough. That's when you live in the moment. And that's been something that we talked about, right? Going back to as far back as to Ironman last year, you know. had a tough match. Things didn't go our way, you know, and going back to that, living in the moment is like, hey, what can I do to make sure that that don't happen again, right? Well, first off, I got to score a takedown. So those things like, hey, I'm down by one, but now is when it really begins. It begins when it's tough, you know, so living in that moment right then and there and knowing like, hey, I know I can get the next point. I know my offense is good enough that I can go score and don't shut down because, man, I'm losing or, man, they shouldn't have put me on the shot clock. Hey, go make something happen.
So it's a lot of just ownership and accountability. And I guess what everybody teaches, control the controllables and try not to waste any mental or physical energy. The other stuff, D, is that how you see it?
Yeah, for sure. Like last year after Ironman, you know, everyone was like, yo, you got cheated, things like that. But the only thing we could do is learn from it, grow from it. And if I would have got one takedown that match, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, and just so people understand, and then I got to tell you a story about Ironman the year before because of a very funny, I think it's funny. Hopefully you guys will like it. But that's the match where you didn't step on the line and they called it. And it's kind of semi-viral in that, like, Ethan, your coach, goes over and D, you may not know this. I'm old enough. I coached Ethan's older brother in college. So, like, I know Ethan's it's like 10 years old. So, you know, but Ethan says, look, sir, you got the right you have the ability here to decide the match or let the kids decide the match. And the referee went by the letter of the law, not the spirit of the law. I don't think anybody thought you had an advantage by not stepping on the line, but it was what it was. And I'm guessing if nothing else, you probably never forget to step on the line again for the rest of your life. It was probably a terrible way to learn that lesson, but you got it. I got to tell you a funny story. So your freshman year, I guess it was, you were going into your freshman year when you came to Border Brawl, correct? A couple of years. So when you guys came in, you know, I didn't get a chance to watch all the matches because I'm running around doing stuff. Jasper knows. And then I went back and watched the matches, and I texted a buddy of mine, and I said, Ferrari's got the most credentials. Lockett's got the highest ceiling. And I said, he's just a freshman. So, but the mistakes he's making, you can fix. And the stuff he does well is really hard to teach and do at that age. And he goes, man, you're crazy. And then you go to Stampede. Well, you won that tournament in Tulsa, and it was cool because you wore our uniform. Your dad sent me a picture. You go to Stampede and you lose. Yeah, like somewhere early in the tournament, come back, beat the guy for third. Kid was a good kid, 4-time state champ out of Missouri. But my friend sends me a text and goes, so much for the LaDarion Lockett era. And then 2 weeks later, you won Ironman as the 18th seed. And I go, sometimes I know what I'm talking about. So like one thing when you coach in junior college is you're very good at recognizing talent, you know, because it's a different energy. But like most of those kids there didn't get high level coaching at an early age. You're an exception. But you moved your feet so well at that age, and you moved your feet in sync with your hands, which is a very high level thing. There's a lot of guys that are doing this and doing that, but it's not working together efficiently. I'm sure I've never told you that, but it was just super impressive to see how developed you were. Probably still a little bit raw, but just, you know, how good you were at that age. So I want to talk a little bit about, give you a chance to give some people some shine. Like, who were some of your primary training partners? Who else poured into you as coaches besides your pop, D?
Coach Joe has been a big part since he moved here in 2018 as one of our head coaches now at the Cowboy Wrestling Club and the Cowboy Wrestling RTC. For sure. Ethan, for sure, has done a lot with us in our high school. He's helped me grow, especially on top bottom, things that Zoe couldn't help with, things that maybe he's a little bit better than my dad. So them two, and then all my little training partners, Kel Hughes, we've been training together since we were little, Landon Summers, and then even some of the college guys that I've been working with this summer.
Yeah, so I thought what was interesting too, this team you had last year was very, very good. I think you guys finished the year second or third in the country. We saw you several times. We saw you at the Hall of Fame duels, and then had a bunch of your guys' matches. Hardell and I called the state finals on a bunch of those. And you guys had some really good battles with Edmond North, both in Hall of Fame duels, the dual states, and then the individual states. Like all three of them, well, two of the three came down the last match. You guys did a good job at dual meet states where it wasn't as close. But I think what was interesting, D, is you weren't thought of as the best guy on the team last year. Like, when you got Cale Hughes, who, is the junior Hodge winner and 4-time undefeated state champion, won what he's won. Like, I wasn't as good as you were at your age, but I was a 3-time state champ and won Fargo as a sophomore. And I had a guy on the team that was 2 years older than me that won state as a freshman when I didn't. And it kind of took the pressure off me my sophomore year. Like, he was a returner and nobody was really talking about me till after the finals and I won. Did you feel a little bit less pressure? Or maybe, let me not ask it as a yes-no question. How was it having somebody on the team as established as him, plus these other guys that have won so much, and maybe just allowing you to just be you and deal less with the white noise that's out there?
Yeah, I mean, it was great, obviously, having someone else on the team. But I think more than anything, it helps us push each other to try to do something he didn't, win something, win a match worse than he did, make sure I pin the guy, like things like that. So I think that's what helped me most about having someone like that on the team.
So, and Jasper, I mean, you've coached a long time and you wrestled, and as good as a coach as you are, you're the best coach in the world and you got lousy training partners. It's very hard for a kid to be good. And if you have the best training partners in the world, that somebody and all they know how to do is blow a whistle, they're probably going to end up being okay. So how important, how grateful, how happy are you that the D's had these kind of kids to work out with and the other coaches?
It's been great having partners like Kale, Landon, some of those guys. This guys that started with us, from the very beginning. So at the very beginning, there was kids that never wrestled a day in their life, and they all kind of grew up together, wrestling with each other. So it was always competitive, and I always used to tell them, "Hey, we're friends, but when we compete, we're competitive, and that's in practice. Whether we go to a tournament, you're at the same weight class, which we didn't have that very often. Landon and Kale used to sometimes be at the same weight, but I always let them know that, hey, at the end of the day, we're still going to shake hands, hug, and still be friends. But when you step out there, we're stepping out there to compete. So that was it's been great having kids like that with the same thought process, that, hey, just because he's winning, I want you to be proud of him that he's winning, even if you're not winning. Because that's your teammate, right? That's your teammate, and that's the thought process. You get a lot of jealousy sometimes, and with those guys, and we never had it. They always rooted each other on, no matter who was winning, who was doing good, who wasn't. And if a person didn't do good, they let them know, hey, man, you need to pick it up, or hey, you're not working there as hard. That's why you ain't winning. And those guys would really hold each other accountable and let each other know that. And those were things as a coach, coaching them from youth, that really made me proud that they made each other take ownership over what was going on, It wasn't hard to say, hey, man, you ain't doing the right things. Or, hey, you missed practice 2 days last week, and so those guys would say it. You go to tournament, well, that's why you lost, because you missed practice 2 days last week.
Well, I told my dad, and I know you know my dad, and you have a lot of respect.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I go, the head coach maybe knows 20 to 30% of what's going on, and the assistant coach maybe knows 40 to 50% of what's going on, and the teammates know dang near everything that's going on. And the best teams are where the guys or girls are policing themselves, and then the coaches just gets to coach. They're not disciplining all the time. They're not chasing somebody to class. They're not bailing them out of jail. They're not, having to talk to teachers because they skip class, like all the stuff that we've all seen over the years. When you're doing all that, it wears on you mentally, it wears on you physically, and then you can't do these other things. Like, you can't teach 4 different finishes to a high crotch because you're just burned out. You're frankly sometimes upset with these kids because you're like, I'm trying to help you, and you don't want to help yourself. So it's
exactly it.
Yeah. So it's awesome that you guys are doing that. And I think that's culture, right? Like, I think and this kind of ties into my next question about recruiting, but like your recruiting process, I saw what you put on Flow, but like people get mad because kids are moving in and out and people are transferring and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, kids want to go where they're going to, if you're a 12-month of the year wrestler, you want a 12-month of the year coach, and you want 12 months of the year partners. And I remember I said this to a coach one time, and he wanted to kill me because like a kid moved out of his school district. And I said, if you and your wife only wanted to be married to each other 4 months of the year, you wouldn't be married. Like,
yeah,
be there every day. Like when it sucks, you still got to be a good spouse. You still got to be a good parent. And like these kids that are committed to it, they want a coach that isn't just going to open the door on November 1 and shut it down on March 1. And if you're that person, you're going to lose the really good kids because they're not going to stay. So I saw the celebration. Before we get to the celebration, neither one of you guys want to go first on this. How much do you game plan? Okay, so like I have the results pulled up here in the qualification round, around of 32, 10-0 against the Puerto Rican in a minute 17. In the round of 16, 10-0 versus the German 309. Quarterfinals, the Kazakhstani 8-0. Semifinals, 10-0, 52 seconds against India. And then a really good match in the finals, 4-1 against Iran. How much are any of you guys, including Zoe, maybe Coach Smith, whoever, how much are you guys, and Jasper, I'll start with you. How much are you literally watching film of these other guys? Is it some? Is it a bunch? Or is it none? Like, hey, we're just here to do our thing and they got to adjust to us.
So, that's kind of how it was. It was like, hey, they have to adjust to what we do. And we have to go out and stick to what we've been training and the things that we've taught and be able to adjust within the match if things ain't going the way we need it to go. You got to be able to adjust. And no matter what I'm saying or Coach Zoe or Coach Green out there is you have to feel it and you have to adjust when you need to adjust. And so kind of putting yourself in those situations. We did look a little bit with the Iranian, I didn't think that, by watching him, I didn't see double legs didn't really work near as much on him just because the way his stance was. And we figured, hey, we got to put hands on him, but we can't lay soft hands on him. We have to make him feel every time you touch him, he has to feel it, and so that's just kind of all we said is like, you got to make sure your hands are on him. And when they're on him, they're hard, and make him understand that, hey, this ain't going to be easy. And then once you do that, we'll break him down. He'll get tired. And, even though it's a 4-minute match, sometimes I'm like, man, how'd they get so tired in that 4 minutes? But I think if you put your hands on them enough, we really worked. Or Zoe and Coach Espo, a lot of the guys, we put a lot of focus into the hand fight. And I think it paid dividends.
Yeah. So D, that's a very interesting point because like, obviously you didn't go to Fargo this year. You had bigger fish to fry, but there's a big difference between cadets or U16s and juniors, that 4-minute versus 6-minute match. And like, there's a kid that I work with and he did fine, but he was expected to do better, but he's sort of got a grinder style. And some of these kids just don't get tired in 4 minutes unless you're really, really able to keep your hands on them the whole time, really keep a high level of pace. And pace can be a lot of different things. You moving your feet, you pulling, snapping, whatever. But it feels like in a 4-minute match, skill supersedes cardio. And then obviously you have both. Clearly, you don't become a world champion with just one or the other. When you were in that finals match, do you make a mental switch to, man, this is going to be a grind match? I'm not getting this dude out of here early. Probably it was the only time you were ever losing in the tournament if you hadn't given up a point to that point. So like I obviously you don't panic. What's your mindset when it's like, 1-0, whatever, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I kind of knew it was going to be hard to get an early attack or like an easier takedown than some of the other guys, like a slide by or something like really slick right away. And it was kind of all part of the game plan, getting them tired, snapping them, making it more of a grind match than like a fancy technique show.
Well, and I know you like to be slick. Okay. Like I like to be slick. Like I liked hitting the stuff that make people say ooh and ah. And like in the high school season, there's certainly matches where you can do that, where you get a couple takedowns, you can outclass a guy, and then you can, go get the pin when your team needs it. But you can kind of have some fun before that, frankly, if we're just being honest. In that match, like what your dad said about, hey, the hands, and I'll rephrase it, but your hands have to be purposeful. Your hands can't be soft. Like every time your hands go, they got to go with a reason, and they've got to be physical. Even though that may not be your favorite style, is that something that I embrace that, or like, well, I'm just going to do it because I have to, or what are your thoughts when you're going to have to get in that kind of match?
I know, especially on like the college NCAA level, that's a big part of wrestling, a big part of the match. So I know I have to implement that into my style with also being slick and laying soft hands. But yeah, I knew for sure I had to implement that into my style. That was one thing that I think I could definitely work better on still, but that I had to work on. So that was one thing that I did pretty big before I went out there.
Well, my guess would be, if I had to game plan against you, is to try to make the match as physical as possible, try to do it in a phone booth. Like, I know you can turn on top, but you're more of a takedown guy. Try to, and just try to make it as ugly in the mud street fight as possible. And then you're going to get more and more of that. So guys are going to continue to grow your hand fighting them for no other reason, out of necessity. So I saw some of the videos and pictures, the stuff from the airport, everything else. Who all organized all the celebrations, and how much did that mean to you, D?
I'm really not for sure who all organized it. Looking on Facebook and stuff, it looked like one of another guy that helps out with our club, Dustin Phipps, and our Cowboy Wrestling Club in high school here, all organized that, and it was great. Showed everyone supported me. Had a lot of people behind me as I was going to that trip. So yeah, it was really cool.
Tell me your impressions of what it's like to be in the USA wrestling system. Like, like James Green is the age group developmental coach. Obviously he's leaving that position, and there hasn't been an announcement, so we're not going to specifically talk about who's getting the new job. But, the training camp, training with these other kids from across the country, for people that have, we have a lot of wrestling fans who just haven't been that good, haven't made a world team. What is that process like? How cool is it? How enjoyable is it? Is it hard? Does it suck? What's it like as an athlete?
Man, it was a great experience. I really liked it, working with Coach Green, different guys over there on the world team. Our travel and everything was pretty good. I mean, it was really nice, fun. Going to that, getting like the dorms and stuff, staying with my teammates was really fun. The whole experience was great. Learning from all those new guys was great. Helped me improve my style, add things to my style. So the whole USA wrestling thing, everything was just good.
Do you specifically, like, let's say I'm going to bump myself and say you and me are on the team together. Like, does somebody in my role say, hey, D, you do this really well, show me how you do that, or vice versa? Do you go up to guys that are really good at certain things? Like, say somebody's got I'll pick an obvious one. If Vito was on that team, maybe you talk to him about his leg lace kind of situation. Do you guys trade knowledge like that?
Yeah, for sure. So, like, one of the things was even Coach Green would help us go to guys. So, like, everyone knows Zach Ryder has a really good underhook. So I worked with him on clearing my underhooks, get into my own underhooks. And then he also came, we learned like some double legs and duck unders and things like that. So, yeah, there was definitely many guys who asked me about my double and things like that. And I was definitely learning from other guys, even like some senior guys that were still there later in our camp and things like that.
Bill Zadek has told me on numerous occasions that at the senior level, when they're doing these camps, that, the Oklahoma State singlet or the Penn State singlet or the Iowa singlet or Ohio State or Cornell or Missouri or whoever else is good, that when people put on the red, white, and blue, that all gets put on a secondary level, Jasper, and that like for example, everyone's going to pour themselves into Zane Richards to get, to try to qualify that spot for the Olympics, Nick Lee, and on down the line on those 6 athletes that are at the Olympic weights here coming up. And that he said you would be surprised at how much cooperation there is from coaches at different programs helping each other out. And I know you get to do a lot of these kind of things. Is that kind of how you've seen it as well?
Yes. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. I've seen it like that as well on the youth and high school age level. I mean, I've worked with a lot of the guys that our guys wrestle with all the time. Last year, Cody Rutledge trained with us almost every day,
Sure.
and he was on a different high school team. But to me, it's all about getting better and elevating everybody, not just our guys or the Stillwater guys. It's everybody. The same thing in the USA. You have to all come together for the one common goal, right? If you're not the guy, help the guy. You know what I mean? So that's the key.
Well, I am getting a crash course in the politics of Oklahoma wrestling as the result of being the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dual Meet Classic tournament director. But my one guy down there is Hardell Moore, because he's the only guy I know that can sit in an Edmond North corner and then a Bixby corner and then a Stillwater corner, and nobody's mad at him. But I think his philosophy is very similar to what you're talking about. Like, listen, I just want to coach kids. I just want to make them better. I don't care what singlets they wear. And, I genuinely want what's best for these kids, these young men in most cases. And, that people see that. And anybody that knows Hardell knows what a genuine guy he is.
Yeah, he was one of the first ones to call me, man. And that's, it speaks volumes,
For sure.
And Hardell's always been there to lend an ear or whatever. If I was having if I thought, man, we're not doing something right here, I could call him and he would help me out. It wasn't, hey, I coach OWA, you're at Cowboy Wrestling Club. It was never like that. It was always, hey, yeah, man, and his son would do the same. He'd bring his son down to me some and train and
sure.
And, mutual respect.
Yeah. And one of my friends calls that a sanity check. Like, sometimes you just call somebody like, let's make sure I'm doing this right. Or like, hey, I mean, your father and son, you don't get along every day. And like, hey, like right now, D and I are not on the same page, Hardell. Like, maybe you could talk to him about this, or maybe I could send him to you for a day or two. Or, hey, if you have somebody who's got a kid older than your son, like, how'd you get through this, situation? So it's good. There's a lot of really good people in the wrestling world that will pass on the knowledge and experiences they have. So that's very cool. D, you talked a little bit about the recruiting process with Flo. But, a lot of people know that I have several friends in the state of Oklahoma, and, you get a lot of texts, like when somebody like you does so well, because A, you've been in the event, B, they know I know your pops, etc. C, you guys are in the Hall of Fame Classic, sort of all the above. And you're, I think, a very self-aware young man. Maybe nobody will say this out loud, but I'll say it, like the price of doing business just went up. Like you were already a huge recruit and then you go do this. So like, how often do schools talk to you like about NIL, scholarship, or does that all stay on the back burner and it's more about just convincing you that this is the place to go? And then the other part is this: how many schools are just convinced you're going to Oklahoma State?
I think there's a lot of schools that are convinced that I'm just going to Oklahoma State. But the schools that have hit me up, it's been just like, not really about scholarship or anything like that so far. It's been more about like a connection, showing me what their program offers me, wrestling and a life situation, school, and things like that. So it hasn't been so much money and things like that right now as it has been more connections and things like that.
So again, I think if you don't go to Oklahoma State, your dad's going to have to move. Like, I might be getting a call like, hey, we're going to start a club in St. Louis or something like that. And I think it's kind of like John's sons, like it's not exactly the same, but I don't think they got the same recruiting process as everybody else, because it'd probably be weird calling John Smith's son and trying to recruit him out from, that situation. Do you have a timetable on when you want to make a decision?
No, I'm not for sure yet.
Just enjoying the process right now?
Yeah. I had my first home visit yesterday with Nebraska, so it was pretty fun. I got to connect with Coach Travell, one of the coaches there. So
he's one of my favorite guys I've ever had on Mat Chat. He started ask him a question, and sometimes what you learn on my side of it is just to shut up and let the other person talk. He talked for 19 minutes straight, and it was awesome. Like, there's not one time that, like, I needed to point him in a different, like, it was awesome. I literally said that to him. I'm like, it was just amazing. So, very introspective guy, doesn't, no offense, but doesn't think like a typical push and shove, like an old school heavyweight. Is, high level, looks at things at a very unique level, and had a very, I don't even know what the right word is, a magnanimous attitude about what happened to him. Eventually getting his medal years later because other people had cheated and drug tested, and he didn't get that shine in the moment, and his attitude about it is amazing. If you haven't talked to him about it, you should, because it's a pretty cool perspective that he has. So I want to ask you just about a couple things. First of all, like growing up or now, because I mean, obviously you're not old, what wrestlers did you look up to, maybe try to model yourself after, or like, hey, I just like how so-and-so does such and such, that kind of thing? Like, who have been some of your idols or mentors or things like that?
Probably one of my favorite wrestlers when I was way younger and still is was Jordan Oliver in college. I really liked him in Oklahoma State singlet, doing a lot of things still that I kind of do outside, not really hand fighting, single legs type of guy. So that was definitely one of them. And then Dayton Fix was, as he was in high school, going to Who's Number One, being from Oklahoma, doing those types of things. And then, of course, everyone's nowadays Jordan Burroughs. So probably those three were the main guys I looked up to when I was younger.
Yeah, and Jasper, I remember watching you wrestle, and you were more, I mean, you certainly were explosive, but you were more, and maybe it had to do with more of your weight class as well. I think if I remember right, like you were an 84-pounder, at least part of that time. So there's less outside wrestling in that weight class than there are in the middleweights. So how important is it, I don't know, important or easy or difficult, whatever the right description is, to let somebody who's your son, who I know you love all the kids you coach, but it's a different level when it's your flesh and blood, to kind of let them develop their own style?
I think it's very important. I think that kind of the structure that we even run our club with is that I kind of mixed two different styles together. I kind of put a semi-Iowa, semi-Oklahoma State style together and kind of formed my own. And then where the kids picked up for one, some of them picked up off the elbow, some of them picked up off of hand fighting. So I don't ever tell a kid like, hey, you shouldn't do that, you should be doing this. I let them kind of find it, and then I try to help grow what they're doing and try to add to it. And that's really how we do it, and it seems to work. Cale Hughes had a different style than LaDarion has, but sure, I just made sure that, hey, I'm not going to make him start wrestling like this. I'm going to help him grow where he's at right now and make it better. Same thing with LaDarion. Hey, what can we do to make this style, what you're doing, better? And I was a double leg guy, so yeah. I was fast for the weight class and like kind of explosive. So I didn't do a lot of hand fighting sometimes. I kind of hand fought a little bit and got them to kind of come after me. And when they did, boom, I'll blow through them. So.
Right. And yeah, I mean, like I think the best coaches take what you're good at, allow you to be that person, and then help you work on what you're not as good at. And sometimes just don't be in this position, or like Dee said, hey, this Iranian's good in the underhook. I don't need to prove for 4 minutes I'm better at underhooking. I just need to know how to clear an underhook every time and go back to being me. And I can spend this fall working on being better on my offensive underhook series, but probably not the time to show it in the world finals, what the other guy's best position kind of, and sometimes, like I coach a lot of jiu-jitsu, and there's a lot of that too. Like, it's like MMA, right? Like if you're the wrestler and he's the jiu-jitsu guy and somebody else is the striker, like it's not who's better, it's who's going to fight in the position they're best at. So I'm going to do a shameless plug because I'm a part of this event. Dee, tell me what you've gone to pretty much everything now, right? Like you've gone, all the Tulsa tournaments, Ironman, my event, the worlds, literally everything. Tell me a little bit about those Hall of Fame duels and why that's so different for you guys, both the format of it, where it is, who we're bringing in this year or brought in last year. And I don't even know if you guys know, but I can tell you some teams that are coming in this year if you're interested.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's that like though, where it's a dual meet tournament for you guys versus individual?
We've been doing a lot of that type of things for a while since I was younger, going to like the Virginia Beach dual tournaments and things like that. But it's definitely different being home, being in the historic Gallagher Arena, which is really cool. John Smith and them are there watching you versus every team. And it was just a really cool event, especially going home, sleeping for 5 minutes and wrestling some of the top teams in the country. Number 1, number 2 in the country is crazy.
Yeah. So I don't even know if I told you this, Jasper, but these are based on where you guys ended up ranked last year, but Buchanan, Stillwater, Edmond North, Del Barton, Wyoming Seminary, Lake Highland Prep, St. Joe Regional, Poway, Clovis, Bixby, St. Peter's Prep, Massillon, Perry, Tuttle, Pomona, and Joliet Catholic.
Edmond North?
Yeah, they were right there.
Yeah.
I would be disqualified from my job if I didn't bring back the defending champs.
Yes.
They wrestled really well in that tournament. They were, I think, the 5, ranked 5th and beat the 4, the 1, and the 2. So, they definitely deserved how they wrestled. So D, we talked about goal setting at the beginning, so I'll kind of set that, talk to you about that at the end. What are your goals for the next 12 months? Are they certain tournaments? Are they certain titles? Are they certain areas of improvement? Are they academic things? Are they school activity things? Are they social things? What are some of your goals?
I think I still have some of the same goals as last year, and repeating everything and trying to win more, as in getting another Ironman title. Try to become better than I was last year in school, life, everything. Just trying to become better and better and improving for getting ready for college and U20 Worlds, and maybe even try to make the Olympic team.
So you will try at 74. I assume 74. You're not going to go to 65, right?
Yeah.
I'm just making sure.
Still up for debate.
Say it again.
I've been messing with him. I said, I think it's still up for debate.
Yeah. But somebody that peaked at 5'6" on a good day, I would not stunt your growth. Whether you make it in 24 or not, I think you got a few quads ahead of you where you're going to be highly successful. And I'm sure you realize that on paper, it's a long shot this time, but 5 years ago, 3 years ago, saying you're going to be a world champion was a long shot, and you accomplished that. So keep shooting for the stars. Anything else you guys want to say? You want to thank anybody? Any message you want to pass on before I let you guys get out of here?
Thanks to our support system back home, of course, my parents, Stillwater High School, Cowboy Wrestling Club, and Cowboy RTC.
Jasper?
Yeah, I want to thank Coach Zoe for one. Right, Coach Zoe is the man, and we had quite a few guys that came in that worked out. Islam Duadayev, wrestles for Albania. Zelim, don't really know how to say it, Kajayev. Some of those guys that really came in and gave us these are senior level guys that came in and gave that European feel, and we were able to wrestle those guys. And those guys are some of the best guys on the senior level circuit right now. So Coach Zoe, man, just hey, thanks for getting those guys and giving them that opportunity of having these type of high level guys come in to train with you, to beat you up, but also build you up, because there was some times at practice I'm like, man, and I'm kind of getting on him, and then one of the guys sits next to me and say, Coach, your son be a world champ this year. You know what I mean? So, and then to see it come to fruition, it was amazing.
Yeah, those guys got a different perspective, right? Like, like if you work out with somebody that you're not supposed to beat, maybe in your praying you're not supposed to beat him, but that's not how you look at it. Like, I'm going to try to get every takedown. But, you know, when you're more of the bug than the windshield, you know, sometimes you got to find a moment or two where you can believe in yourself and find something positive out of it. Zoe to me reminds me a lot of like George Ivanov. If you know him, like he's always gassing you up. He's always telling you that you're the man. Like he's like a professional hype man. He's always seems like he's in a good mood. And, you know, besides obviously being a high level wrestler and a high level coach, just I think that energy is important, especially when you guys are doing it now, where it's less of a business and it's still more of, you know, you're a kid. And I mean that in the most respectful way, but you're a young man. It's not like, you know, you're married with kids and working right now. Like you're still living the life you should be living as a high school athlete. So I don't say this very often to anybody who's been on the show, but D, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
You know, met you when you were young. You're still young, but younger. And it's cool to watch what you did. It's cool to watch, and probably more importantly, how you handled it as a young man. So I just want to say sincerely, I'm proud of you, Jasper. You know, you and I texted, but sincerely happy for you and your family, man, because I don't think anybody can probably, unless you've done what you guys have done, can count the number of hours you poured into this and the white knuckle moments and nail biting and all the stuff that goes into it. So congratulations to both of you guys.
Yes. Thank you. Also, I'm going to give one more real quick if I can. Mark Perry Sr. Mark Perry Sr. was really been instrumental in not only kind of the mindset or the way he's a realist, right? So
yes,
him taking D and just being real from the strength training to a lot of the stuff that, you know, could compare with his kids and where they were at and the different things has been great too, man. Win or lose, like I say, with that guy, he's going to keep it real with you. If you won big, he's going to tell you sometimes maybe like that sucked, you know, or that wasn't very good, D. But he's a wrestling brain. He that guy, he can tell you different things that just amazes you, but he's always been there supporting us too, you know, the whole time and coming into the kid club. I mean, his kids are grown, you know, and he still comes in and checks out and helps.
Well, A, he's a wrestling savant, and B, he's one of the real ones for sure. Next time you see Mark Sr., ask him when he's older than me. When I was a freshman in college, somehow I got roped into doing a clinic with him, and I was his his dummy, and he killed me for like I was like, why? Like, it's not necessary, man. Like, I'm gonna go where you want me to go. And what's funny was some guy told me this, like, I saw that clinic, like he tortured you. I was like, it was not kind, right? And they're like, and Mark and I are super cool, Kathy, you know, I mean, that whole family, they're awesome people, but that was a rough day for me for sure. All right, guys. Well, I know I will see you guys. You're going to stick around here so I can talk to you about a few things, but we're going to sign off. But I know I will see you at the very latest in December in Stillwater at the Hall of Fame duels. For Jasper and for D, I'm David. Thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll speak to y'all next week.